Yo guys, welcome to The Last Lap. Don't forget to drop a lovely, juicy 5-star rating if you're watching on Apple Podcasts or Spotify. Hope you enjoy, and let's get into it. Welcome back to The Last Lap podcast. Everyone, welcome Niran, back again. My guy, good to see you, mate. How you doing?
Indeed, I'm good. I'm well. Well, I mean, I was hungover recently.
I'm not great. I've got a bit of a... I do apologise in advance. You might get a few coughs from me. I've been struggling.
They get them from me on a regular basis anyway. So
we had to wade through the snow to get here today as well.
Oh, yeah. We had to get the...
UK's in a bit of a mad... Well, London is anyway. You say Nottingham's fine.
Nottingham's calm. The homeland, all blessed, mate.
Southampton, the home of our guest today, fine as well, wasn't it, mate?
Actually, it was actually right. Yeah, I mean... Honestly, London is absolute chaos. Am I the only one that's not hungover? Totally fine, because you two are just rough.
I'm a sick old man. So there you go.
I'm a sick...
I've got age on my side. So.
You do. Aldas, welcome back. Thank you for coming, buddy.
Thank you for inviting me.
Thank you for bringing that lovely Mercedes jacket.
Listen, every single time I come on here, I've got to bring a bit of F1 drip. You know what I mean? Come on.
You've got to bring the merch.
Someone's got to bring it. Someone's got to bring the drip up on this podcast, you know?
Wow.
What? Excuse me?
Wow.
This is going to be the first heated debate clip.
Yeah. I had to get that one in early, you know?
Yeah, exactly.
You're saying Tom's got limited Riz. That's crazy, man.
Fuming. Well, we'll talk about Riz today, won't we?
Yeah, we will.
FIA prize giving ceremony.
Yeah. We're just going
out.
Straight in.
Divvied out. Some awards. Unsurprisingly,
any highlights?
Officially, well, look, there's a few, but officially, Max was crowned as 2022 champion.
He wasn't the champion till then.
No.
It was unconfirmed.
No, complete. Yeah.
It
was Latifi still had a chance.
That was the Fabrizio Romano. Here we go.
But it was exactly. The worst kept secret in F1. Interesting quote from Max. We wanted to start the podcast talking about.
It was like bun Ted Kravitz.
Yeah,
all my homies.
How did you know? That's literally what I got written. No, Max actually said, "This year has been very different. I think we were more competitive this year and more enjoyable with how we performed as a whole team. I would say this one is better and more rewarding." From Max Verstappen. More rewarding, I guess, than 2021, which today is the anniversary of Abu Dhabi 21.
You had to remind us, didn't you?
By the way, so we will talk a little. We've got to refresh a little bit more on
days.
But of Max's statement, this more rewarding thing, what do we make of that? Because obviously there were very different championships in the way that they played out. Do you understand where Max is coming from with that one?
Definitely, 100%. Because even he's talked about it, I think straight away after Abu Dhabi 2021, he was kind of like, oh yeah, it's not going to affect me, blah, blah, blah. But then a few months later, he was like, actually, he started really hating that. That was the whole Ted Kravitz thing where he was like, why do people keep bringing it up? You know, leave that in the past. So this year, I think, has felt a lot more cleaner, you know, not as much kind of noise around it, apart from the whole cost cap thing. So, and that does matter to him. Like, even if he doesn't say it or even admit it, like in the back of his mind, like it's so much better. This championship, there's no kind of question mark over it, apart from the cost cap. But again,
yeah.
So that's why I think he's a lot more kind of happier now. You know, no one's gonna challenge the 2022 championship except for Ted Kravitz. But
this is the one where it's like, yeah, man, he won it like 6 months ago.
Yeah,
do you know what I mean? Like it was wrapped up, done, sorted, easy. Like I think for him, it's more rewarding because, like you said, no one can question it. No one can take that away from him.
But as well, like he's only human, and I think the scrutiny that, you know, the eyeballs to be any F1 world champion, when you're fighting at the top, it's always going to be difficult. And I think, like you say, like it was a cakewalk this year. As much as Ferrari should have done better, I still don't think they would have toppled Red Bull Verstappen. And the questions around cost cap, obviously, given the amount of an overspend, do I think it's enough to offset all of that performance advantage?
I mean, how many points did he win the championship by? Like over 300?
140... I think it's 145 to Leclerc, and it was like 149 or 8.
And then
Perez.
Red Bull won the constructors by like over 300 points alone.
Yeah.
Like that's as much as the cost cap, and of course it was, you know, as much as that people will mention it, the way he dominated this season, there's no question mark over it. There's a big question mark on Ferrari more than anything. So and he deserves it. Like the level that he's been driving at this season has been kind of like, that's why we've had a kind of, in my opinion, a bit of a boring season. But the only reason it's been boring because he's been so dominant, and that's
also relative to 21.
Yeah. Well, I mean, 2021 was such a crazy season, but I don't think there's any level of catering really that could have caused such a dramatic.
I mean, they make energy drinks
Yeah.
Like surely that kind of the drink side, they could just have Jaeger bombs. They like for anyone who wants a
There's Jaeger bombs on the house, mate. Every single win. That's why they went over.
Do you reckon they have Red Bull on tap, like in a pub?
yeah.
Where it's like on draft,
yeah.
And they have all the different flavour Red Bulls as well on different
They
taps.
just give Sergio and Max a couple pints before the race starts.
I'm sorry.
Boom, focus.
Did you guys see
That's
that
a great
McDonald's
idea.
advert that Sergio? Was it like McDonald's that he did?
Yes, I did, yeah.
Oh my days, it was so bad.
I haven't seen this. So
If you don't, oh man,
I've not.
after this you need to go and watch. I mean, it's just so cringy, but I actually love it.
Yeah, if you're watching on your computer, open up another tab and find it because it's
Yeah, Sergio
it's
Perez
exceptional.
McDonald's.
We'll find it. We'll find it for you after. But talking of things, what I hadn't seen, something from the FIA prize giving
Yeah,
ceremony.
we
You were
showed
telling me
before.
about before. Very awkward interaction between Christian Horner and Mohammed Ben Sulayem, who's now FIA president.
Yeah.
Digress for anyone who hasn't seen it. You two both saw it.
So it was just a bit of an awkward sort of like misunderstanding exchange, really.
Really
just between
awkward.
the two. Yeah. So this was obviously like Christian Horner's accepting what Constructors' Championship.
Yeah, the constructors are
trophy,
kind of trophy.
right?
Yeah.
Yeah. And he goes up and he's like, he's saying thanks, whatever, and then he goes, it was a bit confusing, obviously, how he won it in Japan because there was that sort
Yeah,
of
when
level
like
of-
Max wrapped up the drivers.
yeah, has Max actually won it? They didn't know. Johnny Herbert was like, yeah, boom, here's what's happened.
You're the winner. Well
Yeah.
done, mate. Next.
Iconic.
Yeah, he mentioned it was confusing, but
And then the FIA president, I think like he confused the word confusion with like controversial. And then he just gets the mic up and he's just like, there was nothing controversial about the way Max won the title. This is nothing to do with the FIA. This is to do with the team. The teams wanted it. And it's like, I don't think he was
Stefano
talking.
Domenicali's in the back, like.
Do you know what it was like?
Stop.
It was like when you're, I don't know, like at a bachelor party or whatever, and like you've got a drunk friend and he's on the mic, and you're that friend like, oh my God, he's going to say something that's going to get him cancelled like any second now, and just like take the mic away from him. Like, that's what Stefano Domenicali was doing. He was like, okay, enough of that. But
maybe he had too many Jaeger bombs before.
Maybe.
Maybe that's what it was.
what was he drinking, mate?
Yeah, he clearly went into kind of defence mode where there was so much talk at the end of obviously 21 about FIA intervention and all that kind of. And look, the FIA has been a very hot topic. I feel like over the last few years more than
They've
in
been
the
moving like
past.
FIFA, mate. It's unreal. It's just like their name is like, I think they're doing a lot of reputation kind of repairing, but yeah, they're still kind of at the forefront. And there's so much scrutiny on them. You know, anything that happens in Formula One, any kind of controversy, they're always going to look at the FIA now because like they seem to be like, I don't remember again like if they were even like that much known about like 5 or 6 years ago, but now it's like they're always a big topic, which is kind of strange.
This is what I do wonder if the whole FIA thing, it's like, is it because there's been these high profile incidents, whether now there's always just more scrutiny in the same way look, with Ferrari, when Ferrari make a mistake, we jump on them. If they do something good, it's like, okay, whatever.
But if they weren't in
Kinda
the
gets
title
forgotten
fight,
about.
we wouldn't really care as much.
Exactly. That's what I mean. I don't know how much of it is that. And I guess obviously it's the job of Mohammed Ben Sulayem to like protect and obviously in defensive mode there. But
He didn't
it
do
was
a great job though, did he?
Didn't do the best job.
Probably arguably made it worse.
Yeah, definitely
if
made
we're
it.
going to be honest. I think, you're kind of right in terms of like, that you've had like a high profile incident like Abu Dhabi was. And then
Look, you went all Leclerc there.
You've had that high profile thing of last year and now, there's more eyes on it. But like, for being honest, these stupid like errors and mistakes have kind of always been there.
Yeah.
You got,
Oh, no,
even the
it's true.
Japan tractor was like, can't be doing that again.
Yeah.
Same track, same conditions. Like, I don't know. I think, there's more eyes on it now because you had that original Abu Dhabi main huge thing.
Just the
Definitely.
entire 2021 season, I mean, it was just nuts.
Yeah.
Well, how do we? Obviously, it's a year on, and also like at the end of the day, right? I completely reject any assertion that we can't talk about Abu Dhabi 2021 because it's a bit controversial because a few people on Twitter can't like control themselves. Like ultimately, this was one of the most defining, most memorable moments in F1 history, and will be.
If you
forever.
look at between 2020 and 2030, that decade, guaranteed that will be the most thing that happened in
easy. I think you look at the history of the sport. Like that's
Yeah.
up there with Prost, Senna. That's up there with like
All of Schumacher's crashes at title deciders, basically.
Yeah.
literally in terms of like memorability. But how do we? Because what were we? I was doing a live stream for the race. What were you two doing on the day?
I mean,
reflection of
The thing is, actually, that race was obviously like the only one in 2021 that was on free to air. It was on when it was the only one that I watched like with my mum and dad, like sat down. And Lewis Hamilton was obviously like dominating that race. It was actually a bit of a boring race, like before the whole.
it was
like,
a really boring
shocking.
race.
it was a bit of a stinker, apart from like the first couple of laps, and obviously like Checo defending. But then yeah, after like 3/4 of the race, my dad was like, yeah, that's it, Lewis won, I'm just going to walk away. Like, they literally stopped watching, and obviously I'm still glued. And then obviously Latifi bins it, you get the safety car, you get all of that controversy. And that is why, love it or hate it, Formula One, as much as people say it's predictable, it's not. Anything can happen right up until the final lap, and it did. And of course, whether it's good or bad for the sport, I mean, it doesn't make it look good. But, I mean, it's box office a year later. It's going to be box office for decades to come.
Literally,
forever.
Yeah. So I was actually there at the time, and this won't come as a surprise. I was critically hungover at the time.
So unlike you, man.
Yeah,
Surely
not. And this was an evening race as well. I'm still struggling. I'm fighting for my life yet. So I'm there.
6 hours a day drinking beforehand.
Absolute stinker. So I was there like fighting for my life, and obviously, yeah, like you said, the first 2/3, 3/4 of the race was pretty stinky. Get to that point, obviously Latifi bins it, and I've said it a few times, but like, because like I think there's that misconception sometimes when you're at a Grand Prix, you actually don't often know all the details of what's going on.
You can't. Unless you have like a big screen right in front of you.
Yeah, and even when you've got the screen, you still don't have the actual live feed commentary. You don't have Crofty or anything like that. You don't get all of the graphics on the screen or like FIA notifications, or you can't see them because they're so fucking small. So obviously we saw what was shaping up, and we were like, oh my God, this could be a last lap shootout. Oh my God, Max got the new tyres on, Lewis got the old ones on, whatever. But we didn't know the nuance of like only a certain few drivers had been allowed to unlap themselves. So we're there like, yo, this is crazy. Didn't really notice that like there was like a fucking Aston Martin in between Sainz and Hamilton or whatever. Sainz and Verstappen. Comes to the end of the race, oh my God, that was mad. That's the greatest finale ever. Like 10 minutes later, go onto Twitter and then see all the controversy. It was like, oh shit. So we were in this weird bubble of like thinking for the first 10 minutes, that was absolutely the pinnacle of what Formula One should be. And then realised that it was actually a bit of a shit show afterwards.
I just remember Twitter after that. Every single tweet got like minimum 2K likes. It was like numbers, every single tweet. Everyone was talking about it. I was like,
easy conversion.
Stonks.
Easy stonks. Well, no, because so even Toto Wolff has come out now and kind of publicly said, in terms of it's time to kind of move on, essentially. Look, I get it that you can look at numerous different sports. Doesn't matter. Again, I guess football most poignant at the moment with the World Cup. There's always been moments in football matches where a referee's made a decision that don't necessarily agree with. Thierry Henry handball against Ireland. That one always sticks in my mind. I'm not even Irish. And it's one of them that like I don't know. I feel like it will always be remembered, and there will always be people who will rightly or wrongly, whatever your opinion is on it, criticize it, but also this process of time. As time goes on, this will become part of history. And I still think even now, like we saw it at Abu Dhabi, like this year, it was much, it was at the forefront of everyone's conversation, right?
Mate, even in the build-up, all of the kind of posts on social media, people were like, throwback to Abu Dhabi last year. It was just like, it was not difficult to kind of like see all that because like obviously it happened last year, but it's just, that's always going to be a moment in Formula One history, and it's going to be an iconic moment, whether you love it or you hate it. We know that, whether you think it's right or wrong, whatever, it's going to be an iconic moment forever. Like, and the fact that we actually got to watch it in a weird way, I'm actually kind of glad that we got to see it because like that is a moment I'm never going to forget.
Yeah. That was like
sport sometimes,
motorsport heritage.
Yeah, it was. I like that. That's good.
That's what it was. Yeah, no, it was like the thing is though, with the whole, I understand where Toto Wolff is coming from.
And I agree with him, by the way. Like, I get that.
I hear it's getting, like, this is an argument, like, it's getting a bit old. But, like, when it comes to these iconic moments, especially when they're born from, like, mistakes and stuff, I think it is important to make sure that you still kind of, like, keep them in. Don't talk about them all the time, fine. Don't define Max Verstappen by Abu Dhabi 2021. But, like, we had a serious error of judgment there. And if you just sweep it under the carpet, forget about it, then,
You need to remember your history to not make the same mistakes again.
Yeah, exactly,
the context of why it happened is very important, even if you look back and, like, again, it's an iconic moment, but you got to remember the context.
Yeah, because, again, that's one of those... Again, my understanding is that conversations were had beforehand, always want to get the race redone under green flags when possible. If that had been made clear from the outset that the race director can be a bit more, okay, let's just get the cars going, then that's fine. Like everyone's agreed, but because it was done so hush hush, and that's the thing. Like you say,
it's also not the case at the Grand Prix.
You've not set a precedent there, exactly.
Yeah.
And that's the thing. It's like if that is the ruling, then you've just got to be clear enough. But again, it's about learning from these things and moving forward, because sport will always move forward.
Yeah,
championships.
Not F1 Twitter, mate. Not F1 Twitter.
They won't move on. They won't move on. They don't care. But Max Verstappen will also move on. The rest of his career will move him away from what he was known for there. So
I think that's why this 2022 championship, like why he said it feels so much better. Let's talk about it. I mean, that's why he's so much happy. And he 100%, he was miles the best driver this year. Like in terms of driving the team consistency, there wasn't even anyone close. Like at the end of the day, in my opinion, he had the championship wrapped up in like Hungary. Like especially after Leclerc binned it in France, that was it.
It was pretty ominous, wasn't it? But
the rest of the team was just a flex, mate. It was like how many races I can win,
Yeah, I was going to say.
Let's talk sprint races now, boys, because we have had the 6 confirmed.
Yes,
for
we've
next
actually
year.
had the venues, haven't we?
Yeah, so we have
There's some chaotic ones in here as well. Jesus Christ.
Starting with Baku.
Yeah, that's the one.
What are we thinking Baku for a sprint race?
It should be quite interesting because what I think the sprint adds, apart from the actual sprint race, is less practice time. And what we saw, for example, in Sao Paulo is that the problem for Red Bull is that they weren't able to get like their car and their tires kind of sorted out during practice. And I think that actually adds more than the actual sprint race itself, less practice. So around somewhere like Baku, I mean, that's going to be carnage. Like the walls are close. How much are drivers, there's always that question, how much are they going to risk? But I mean, they were risking quite a bit in the sprint in like Sao Paulo. So
the Brazilian one was ridiculous. So
it depends on also, will we have a title challenge at that point as well? Because I think if it is a little bit closer between like 2 title rivals or 3, then perhaps you might get a few more moves.
Because which round is Baku? Is like 7 or something?
I think so. Something like that.
Around there. So hopefully we'll have something to fight for.
I mean, if the title's over by round 7 in 2023.
I was going to say,
bloody hell.
We're in for a long one.
All right, Belgium.
Big fan. I know that. You're anti-Spa, aren't you?
It'll be 3 laps long,
No,
though.
I'm not anti-Spa. God, you're trying to get the clickbait title straight away there. And Tommo is anti-Spa.
Yeah.
I hate spas.
No.
I
had
never
this
have a
debate.
relaxing time at a spa.
We had this
ever.
debate, and you said that, you said, the Belgian Grand Prix wasn't really that good and stuff like that. And I told you, the reason why, do you remember what happened in Spa? Is that everyone changed their engine. Every single person did it. And do you know why? Because you can overtake around that track. And so I think it's the perfect track to do something like that.
It's an iconic track, but does it give the great will to all racing?
Ocon did 2 double overtakes.
DRS overtakes down the Kemmel Straight.
I mean,
that Kemmel Straight doesn't need DRS.
I mean, one of them wasn't to the bus stop.
I actually hear that, Loki. I actually hear that.
It's just too easy.
Listen,
Not every straight needs DRS.
I am going to defend Spa because it is still one of my favourite tracks. It deserves to be on the calendar. I'm glad to see it.
You love a spa. You love a steam room. You love a good foot massage.
Love a spa, like the shop as well. Little little off-license thing.
Classic. You don't see many of them in the UK.
I was going to say,
a bit more of a European thing, aren't they?
No joke, I used to live above one. When I first moved to England, no joke, I used to live above one.
That's why you're a spa defender, isn't it? You're biased.
Yeah.
Cool. What do you reckon of Belgium?
I love Belgium as a track. I love Spa. We all do. Like it's literally iconic. I think it's more just like, how many laps you're actually going to get there for a sprint? I guess it'll probably be like 9 or something.
It's a very long lap.
It's the
such a long lap.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, so I don't particularly mind it. And again, like you said, I think that goes under the radar, the lack of practice, because you literally get one free practice session before then the sprint starts.
Exactly. Yeah.
Tell you what, give us a combination of a new track and a sprint race there at the same time. Tragic.
Carnage.
Vegas
Absolute
sprint.
carnage.
Yeah.
Vegas sprint.
Well, they haven't done it. It's not on the list, unfortunately. But what is on the list is Qatar, which if you asked me to draw Qatar,
I feel
the map, I just couldn't. I wouldn't even know where to start.
Today I feel sprint.
You killed me, man. You killed me.
Geography skills out the window.
Well, no, because I'm trying to think. So Fernando got his
podium.
I
remember
that. It was an all right race. It wasn't.
Yeah,
terrible.
it was okay. The big thing about it, I remember, was like the tires exploding or something right towards the end.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was kind of like,
Which could be interesting for a sprint. Maybe risking the soft.
Yeah.
They need to bring the right tires. It always matters to that. But it was such a. It's weird. I completely forgot we even went there last year. Because I remember like Lewis obviously won. That was quite dominant around
Even though
there.
your boy Fernando got a podium.
It was a good podium. He didn't luck into it, by the way.
It was
that lap 1 move he did around the outside of Gasly.
Yeah.
Oh my day, it was brilliant. But I don't know how I feel about that. I don't know whether it was like that. Yeah, they looked at all of the races and said, yeah, definitely Qatar, or maybe if Qatar perhaps were kind of lobbying for it a little bit. So I don't know. I'm up in the air about it, but I'm kind of looking forward to going back to that track to see what it's kind of all about. Because they do have, Formula 1 do have a contract, like, what was it, a 10-year contract in Qatar, regardless of that track.
Yeah, that's what I mean.
is
It
kinda
won't be
nuts.
at Losail for the whole period. They're going to try and, I guess, recreate their own version of Saudi.
Right, okay, they're going to build a new one there.
Yeah, like a street circuit by the bay. I think that's the plan.
Right,
But,
okay.
so the thing is, I think that, the sprint format, from my understanding anyway, it's not going to be changing fundamentally. So because I think the sprints are a little bit too long, personally. I think they need to be a little bit shorter, yeah.
Spa sprint would be like 3 laps, then
Yeah,
you want it to
literally.
be shorter.
Sure, I'm happy with that.
It's an open lobby.
I'm happy with that. Literally, why not? We got that 2-lap sprint at Baku, what was it, a couple of years ago?
Oh, that was brilliant. Yeah, yeah. And then when
Great
Lewis
magic.
just went on.
Fine.
Literally same vibes at Spa. But it's,
yeah.
I don't know about, do you know what? I'm kind of the opposite. I'm like, whenever we get to like one of those sprints, I'm always like, I want more. Why is it ended now? I want it to just make it a race distance.
just
races.
Just
Just
have
do
a race
races.
Friday, Saturday, and Sunday.
Yeah,
3
exactly.
races. Why not?
Who needs practice? Don't do
More
quality.
racing, yeah.
And then we're also we're sprinting in Austin, in the US.
That's just because of location. I'm convinced they've just been like, let's just have a sprint in America.
Yeah.
They want to get those numbers up.
They wanna get
in
those
the US. Like they're seeing the growth there.
Miami was a bit of a dud
The
compared to
attendance,
Austin.
the attendance for Kota wasn't that literally a record in
It
Formula
was
1
like
history?
400,000 like across the 3 days.
Yes, I mean you kind of might as well, really.
Nuts.
If you're gonna
And I think it's also a good track as well.
It is.
That's the important. You got to pick good tracks because like sometimes there have been tracks where I mean, I love Imola, but I don't think it was like apart from I think the
it's
little
not a
Leclerc
sprint
Max
track,
thing
is
at the
it?
beginning.
Yeah,
it wasn't
probably
that great.
the worst track I reckon. Well, and Monaco for a sprint. Like you've got to choose tracks for the sprint where there's actual overtaking possible.
Yeah.
Strategically.
because you're not going to get. You don't need. The strategy isn't there.
Yeah,
for,
yeah.
like pit stops, obviously. So you kind of need actual like raw overtaking tracks.
Yeah, I mean, I'm happy with Austin. Great track, good
Yeah, for
overtaking
sure.
opportunities.
Yeah, decent.
And then the other two are Austria and Brazil. We return, which I mean, we're happy with that.
Yeah, yeah.
I know why it's not, but I really want Sao Paulo to be the final race of the season. Like back when I started watching in 2012, like the fact that it was the final race, that track is so good for a title like finale.
Yeah.
I know Abu Dhabi obviously had like a contract to be the the final race, like the fireworks and stuff, but Sao Paulo would still be the one. Like,
Are there no fireworks in Brazil? Are they illegal?
Yeah, yeah.
They don't
Not
sell
allowed.
fireworks in Brazil. 'Cause,
Exactly.
like, we could just do that there.
Not quite the same vibe, clearly, but yeah, I wish it was the final race. If you know what I mean.
I miss it because you had that unpredictability of the weather as well with Brazil. I know, because you had fucking Hamilton, Glock, you had the Vettel 2012 race, but like just that spice, that added spice. Abu Dhabi is an average track that provides very average races very regularly.
Yeah.
The only highlight that we have is literally 2021, and then
and that was a bad race. By the way.
that was a shocking race up until that point. And then the only other thing, realistically, that I can think of Abu Dhabi for is that Alonso couldn't overtake Vitaly Petrov.
It's not good when you're trying
which
to
is
get famous
why-
for not being able to overtake.
Do you know what I'm saying?
That was pretty much what prompted DRS
Yeah.
to become a thing.
Yeah.
That instance, kind of,
Yeah.
because the FIA were clearly fuming that Alonso couldn't win. I'm joking. It's a joke.
It's all a
He was
conspiracy.
robbed by
He was
Petrov.
robbed by Petrov. No, look, I'm all in all. I know there's a lot of. I've seen quite a lot of anti-sprint sentiment. I think it's easy to be negative about these new things that are coming in. I think it's inevitable. We're going to get competitive running Friday, Saturday, Sunday.
Yeah.
That is going to be happening more and more long term. I think because they sell more tickets, get more eyeballs on the sport. I don't think it'll be long until half the races are.
And I must be honest, I mean, I was someone who was totally like up for it. I wanted to see what it would be like over the last 2 years, and
Yeah.
obviously when it came in 2021. I'm leaning to really like it, actually, now. Like, just the unpredictability, especially the fact that there's only one practice session. I feel like that's the really big thing.
You're right. Yeah.
Yeah.
As much as, like, I know some people, like, I actually know, I was speaking to one person, they really wanted to hate it, and now they
Yeah.
actually love it, but they just don't tell anyone. So it's like, I actually think it's really good.
The thing for me is it just has to be at tracks where it's not going to or it has to be a situation where it's not detracting from the actual race. And like, because you didn't have that in Brazil, thankfully, because the Brazilian race was actually good anyway. But you had Magnussen on pole, and the sprint sort of like filtered out people and like moved the sort of order back to where it should have been. Thankfully, the race was unbelievable anyway, so it didn't really matter. But you do have that sometimes with a sprint, where if you get a bit of a hectic qualifying session, you then kind of lose that because of the sprint. The sprint almost like filters things back to how they should be again.
The thing is, I think it's important to look at the sprint in the context of the future of the sport being a lot closer if the cost cap does its job, because historically you've had the big teams spending 5-6 times as much money per year as the smaller teams, so of course they're going to be exponentially quicker. Of course they're going to if they have a poor qualifying, of course they're going to drive through the field. Hopefully, give it 3-4 years, the sport should be in a much more competitive place. Not that, again, no spec series, but where everyone can at least fight for podiums. That's the kind of ideal. But obviously, going into... Well, not anymore.
Making a
job centre, mate.
He's got job centre. He's going back.
Maybe IndyCar. We'll see. But obviously, talking of the future, talking to 23, we've got a few kind of topics we want to kind of breeze over for 23.
Yeah.
First of all, back to Red Bull. Now that we've had time to kind of, I've heard bits from, people way more intelligent like Craig Scarborough than me talking about the potential impact on Red Bull of this wind tunnel time. Do we think it's going to make a significant... Because obviously lower wind tunnel time anyway, because they won the Constructors relative to the rest of the field, but even
the penalties
less. Exactly, another 7% knocked off. Do we think that's going to make enough of a difference, especially considering, like you were saying earlier, Aldas, how good Max Verstappen has been and how good you anticipate he will be next year as well?
No. Next question.
This is easy.
Exactly. No, honestly, I think that team is, first of all, they've already got a leg up over everyone else. Like, their car wasn't just good, it was dominant, especially in the races. Like, Ferrari might have had it over one lap, but especially in the races, like Max in some of them, and even Checo, they were clear. And so they've already got that kind of advantage. And I think Christian Horner mentioned it, like, I think that even spurs the team on even more.
Well, I think Max was the differentiating factor. When you look at the average race pace and average quali pace, Perez was behind Leclerc.
But even then, he still finished, again, like third in the championship and was fighting for second. So even if you say that Perez, I mean, Max is on another level. Whatever car they give him, he'll find another 2 tenths out of that. That's because that's how good of a driver he is. He will make that difference and make that car dominant. But even Checo was doing a really good job and almost beat Leclerc to second in the championship. So the car was good. I don't think it will affect Red Bull that much. Ultimately, they can still design the car, as much as they want. It's just ultimately more of those parts are going to have to go to the track and be more experimental instead of like getting kind of sorted in the wind tunnel. So perhaps you'll see Red Bull running a bit more flow viz in the, in the practice sessions to kind of, correlate if they see what is right. But I don't think it will make a massive difference, to be honest, because they've already started developing the 2023 car. So
they've still got the Newey brain.
They've still got the Newey brain, man. Making boats and all sorts of... He's sick.
I mean, he's only like a 12-time world champion now. What is that?
It's actually outrageous. He's a cheat code. He's actually a cheat code.
Literally, he is. I thought I was going to die for a second then. I went to breathe and the cough came and it was just...
Adrian knew he needs to design you some lungs.
He does. That would be amazing, actually.
That would be crazy.
Aero upgrade right there.
I could run a marathon in an hour.
Yeah.
That'd be sick.
You told me you used to be a runner as well. Like, what's happened to you, man?
I fell off, mate.
Fell off.
We all have
Unbelievable.
Didn't ask.
I have my glory days. But no, do you think that... Do you think it's going to make a difference?
I mean, Max Verstappen himself is pretty confident that it's not going to have they're going to be strong. Again, he's excited for next season, even though they've got these aero penalties. I think obviously, hopefully with the cost cap and the wind tunnel time, you are going to get this sort of accordion effect of bringing everyone a little bit closer together. But I don't think you're going to get a situation where Red Bull just completely drop off or aren't still kind of the fastest car. I hope we have a situation where Ferrari and Mercedes are kind of there. We have a 3-car title fight of a kind.
I mean, that would be amazing, yeah.
I know we had the dominance of Verstappen, and it was ultimately Red Bull still would have won the championship because, like you said, their race pace was better. You had so many Grand Prix where Leclerc takes pole and then just get absolutely murdered by the Red Bull 10 laps in.
One of my favourite moments, I think it was Monza. Leclerc gets pole, and I think Verstappen had an engine penalty or something, and he was starting 9th or 10th. And Leclerc's doing the top 3, I forget what the top 3 was, but he's doing his interviews. And the first thing that the interviewer, one of the first things the interviewer asks him, so do you think Max is going to win the race? And the guy's starting 9th. And Leclerc's, in the back of his mind, Leclerc's like, yeah, look, Max is probably going to be, pretty quick. And again, he's starting 9th. And that's how dominant Max was. That's how good he was this season. Wherever he was starting, 9th, or what was it, 14th in Spa.
Yeah, Belgium was ridiculous.
He could have started from the pit lane in Belgium and been the first person to ever win from the pit lane. It was almost, at some races, it was almost a guarantee. It was how many laps it will take him. But that's what Max in his prime at the moment can give you. Those extra 2 or 3 tenths to make a car look dominant.
But this is why I'm optimistic about next year, because with that, with that year of knowledge that everyone's now got, Ferrari know they had a good platform that they can build on. Mercedes know they kind of messed up, but they salvaged it somewhat towards the end of the year. They know the mistakes they've made.
Williams are in Formula 1 as well.
Williams 115% ATR time. They're going to be like,
but that's what. No, but
P1,
you were
mate.
talking about like the Red Bull thing.
Boom.
You can give Williams X amount of wind tunnel time, they're still not going to get to the front because wind tunnel time doesn't define like how quick your car is. Like
exactly.
Williams are just there for the vibes.
It's personnel as well. Like, ultimately.
Yeah.
Exactly. That's why Ferrari haven't won back-to-back championships. They've had the most money coming in historically in Formula One.
Yeah, because they get
they used to get some
Historical
mad bonus
payments.
I can't remember what the word is. But
They got the bag just for being there, just for turning up, just because they're Ferrari. Like,
but they still wouldn't win. That's what I mean. Like exactly what you say. It's
Legacy
about the
payments,
quality
isn't it?
of personnel.
Spending on
That's why
catering, mate.
Force India Racing Point. All that success they had relative to their budget for years. But obviously, it's not going to stay this way forever. There's a kind of top three at the minute. Who do we think are most likely to be the ones to knock on that? You had a good surge from Aston Martin towards the end of the year. Mm-hmm. McLaren, obviously, Alpine, they were the ones fighting for P4. Or maybe, did Alfa Romeo sandbag and they're going to come flying through? Oh,
No,
Williams
they didn't.
finally going to deliver.
They were just
on the
terrible,
car he
mate.
deserves.
Is Yuki Tsunoda the greatest driver of all time?
Yes.
We'll drag AlphaTauri there.
He's being honestly check his car. Because that is not the same car as Gazzy. Yuki Tsunoda's the GOAT, so I don't know what's going on there. But
Conspiracy.
do you know what
that.
it is? That midfield, I think that's the most exciting thing. Because even the thing about 2022 is that we didn't get too much of a title fight, but there wasn't even that much of a fight really in the midfield. Maybe Lando Norris by himself might have beaten
Well, it split
Alpine.
into pairs, didn't it?
Exactly, and in the past we've had even, I remember 2018 it was is Haas going to finish best of the rest? Is it going to be Renault or someone else? So
it was pretty set up from the start, wasn't it? It was defined. It was it's either
and it was
McLaren
and it was
or
more
Alpine.
just Alpine bottling it. Do you know what I mean? Blown up every single race. Fernando Alonso every single race. But I think that's the only thing I'm worried about in terms of Alpine is that are they going to sort out their reliability? Because if Oscar Piastri kicks on like I think he will, I think McLaren could have been Alpine. So that as teams, I think Alpine needs to get a lot better because I still think McLaren is the one that I look at and think if I was in the midfield and if I had to choose a team outside of the top three to be at maybe for the future, I'd still go McLaren. I have more trust in McLaren than I do at Alpine.
Yeah. No, I agree. I think out of the sort of the mid runners, I guess you could argue, or outside the top three, McLaren are the one that strike me with a good young lineup as well. They don't even really need to change for fucking however many years if they didn't want to. They've got that experience of being McLaren and winning before.
And Lando is now the experienced driver. He's been there since 2019. He's not a young driver technically anymore, so he's the experienced guy.
Yeah.
I'm kind of thinking Aston Martin.
He's been on this Aston. No, I mean, I'm not going to disagree now.
I'm on what's the green Kool-Aid? What would that be?
Tomo, do you have shares in a certain car company, perhaps?
They're not doing very well. They're really not. I'll show you after. They're really not. I didn't put much into them, unfortunately for me. No, I think that with Aston Martin's development over the course of the year, they learnt a lot clearly over the course of the season. Dan Fallow's going into his second year at the team. He was Red Bull's kind of, one of those big brains below Adrian Newey that doesn't necessarily get the credit that they deserve because Adrian, and rightfully so, he gets a lot of the plaudits at Red Bull, but it's not just one person. And I just feel like I think their new facilities pushed back a little bit. It won't be ready for this next season coming up, but I think it's going to be ready midway through.
The wind tunnel is apparently going to be ready in May, but then they've also got two other buildings that aren't going to be ready until the end of 2024. So this is a long-term project.
I think the momentum that they're carrying, the improvement. You look at Vettel's race pace by the end of the year. He was kind of I think he was behind Ocon, in terms of clear of everyone else, and behind the McLaren and the Alpines. I just think having that season from the start and having a driver like Fernando Alonso, who can drive the tits off of anything. Let's be honest. This is Fernando, right? He's
does he want to drive
completely?
That's the question. No. I think
this is what he does best.
Yeah, no, I hear you. I think extracting the most out of a car that doesn't have that raw pace is literally Fernando Alonso's bag.
But he can drive anything.
He can literally
yeah.
If you give him a Ford Fiesta
Fiat
tomorrow
500
to drive, he's finishing at least top 15.
But regardless of who we think is going to be best of the rest, do we think any of them are going to be able to perforate into that top three
next season?
The problem with that is there is still quite a gap. Just remember, we did not have a single, except for Lando Norris, we did not have a single person on the podium outside of the top 3 teams.
True.
Now, you can say that's partly down to maybe a bit of reliability, like the top 3 teams were actually quite good.
But there were more pole sitters this year, different pole sitters than there were last year.
Really?
Yeah.
That actually surprised me because I remember like
How many?
Big up K-Mag. Well, you had like Russell,
The whole top 6 and then came
yeah.
was it?
Did Hamilton get pole?
No.
Hamilton didn't, but
I think it was
K-Mag
just.
did.
I think it was just. What was it? Just 6 then, because it was K-Mag as well. Basically all of the top 6 minus Hamilton, then just K-Mag. I don't remember anyone else.
I'm pretty sure I remember reading that there was one more this year.
No, I remember Leclerc
Could be
got pole
fake
last
news.
year. Anyway, we'll
Could
see.
be
Yeah,
fake
we'll
news.
fact.
You got to remember, we didn't have a top 6 in 2021. We had a top 4 because it was literally just Mercedes versus Red Bull.
I still think there's a gap. You know, even the likes of say Alpine, like there's still a gap between them and like Mercedes. So I feel like
The gap's huge.
Exactly.
If we're being honest, because you get the general theme of a Grand Prix is you have like, right at the end you had the top 6 because Mercedes got there, but like for the most part of the season you had obviously top 4. Red Bull, Ferrari, then a little bit of a gap back to Mercedes, and then like 45 seconds back to like Lando by like the end of the race.
Yeah.
and it was just like, it was about 20 seconds in front of Lando and also behind him. He was like in a world of zone.
Yeah. So that sort of gap over the course of a race, that's going to take time to come down. I don't think you're going to get.
I'm just saying though, because Ferrari and McLaren were pretty much on par as recently as 2021.
Last year.
You know what I mean? And now
you had the rule change. You had the
yeah, of course. But
regulation
that's what I mean. Like that shows that again that the work in these 2022 chassis was going in back in like 2019 when they first started. So they had time, and obviously with COVID, a bit more time off. But like, I don't know. I would be surprised if there aren't 3 more teams. Aston, Alpine, McLaren are the ones that come to mind immediately. Maybe Alfa Romeo, if Alfa Romeo carried their progress throughout the season, it's easy to forget how well Bottas started the year.
I think it was really frustrating to see how quickly that team, they didn't just tail off. They fell off a cliff.
Yeah, literally.
Like they were developing that car, but clearly it wasn't developing as well as the other teams. And again, Valtteri Bottas, I remember after like 6 races, I was like, this guy might be like, having the top 4 kind of in terms of best performances this season.
Yeah.
Like he was like 7th or something.
I think he might have been best of the rest for a little.
It was unreal.
It was start, but ahead of Lando. So
and then all of a sudden they had a lot of reliability issues, and they just couldn't develop the car. Like I think they did, kind of bring an upgrade at one point later in the season, but they looked all right in Mexico, but it was just not enough. So
it was after Silverstone, wasn't it? Because I remember Guan Yu Zhou still got like top 10 in qualifying, but then obviously got like absolutely sent at the start.
Yeah, well, Joe got points in his first race, didn't he?
Well, yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
P10.
I love Guan Yu Zhou.
But
On a podium for him next season.
Yeah.
In like a crazy race.
I'm actually really gutted from that. The Chinese Grand Prix was like cancelled because I thought, first proper Chinese driver in Formula One, like at his home Grand Prix, that would have been, mate, Drip Zhou. You would have had a great time, man, no doubt.
yeah, not to be unfortunate for him. One last thing with 23 as well, wanted to briefly mention. I did a little video about this on my channel a while ago.
Plug.
Hello.
Most under pressure driver. Let's pick one each. Most under pressure driver next year.
It ain't Lance Stroll.
No.
His dad owns
Man's got that lifetime 360 contract.
Lifetime contract, man.
What are we thinking? Any names come to mind? Or maybe like, because I think there's some more obvious ones. Yuki Tsunoda, I think, is a pretty obvious one.
Yuki Tsunoda's
with
a
Nick
big
de
one.
Vries coming in as rookie teammate, and Helmut Marko being like he's going to be team leader. That must be hard to listen to.
I'm not sure Yuki's ready for that pressure, bro.
I'm not sure either. I'm really concerned. I love Yuki, man, and I'm worried because he has to take on that responsibility now of as a team leader. Realistically, if he doesn't beat Nick de Vries next season, he is gone.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure like that is the assignment, and it's pretty clear.
Yeah.
Like from the get go, because Red Bull have some pretty average junior drivers in F2.
Yeah, no one's really set it up.
There's a lot of them. There's a lot to choose from. Zane Maloney as well, who just won second in F3.
They're signing guys like left,
Just
right, and
signed,
centre. Do you know what I mean? It's
He
crazy.
is sick.
Well, Liam
I
Lawson's
really rate
doing
him.
Super Formula, which is the route Gasly took.
Yeah, I think Liam Lawson and if Zane Maloney was to have a good F2 season are the two that would probably be Dennis Hauger, maybe, if he could get himself
Iwasa.
together. Iwasa.
He's just been confirmed.
They've got a
There's
lot
of
there's
options.
so many of them. Like they need a third team. Like, do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like
So,
even more clothes, AlphaTauri 2 or something like that. But no, it's
AlphaTauri.
Yuki.
whatever Red Bull is in French, just like slap that out there as well.
Brilliant idea. Yeah, trademark that. But honestly, Yuki, he's hanging on there by a thread. I mean, one of my favorite all-time moments was like, I think when he got confirmed midway through 2021.
Yeah.
And in the Spa interview, he was like, yeah, even I was surprised when they gave him the
Mate,
contract.
I love him. He's just so refreshingly honest. It's great.
But you know what? He's also a bit too honest. Like, I would not have said that. There's something in the back of my mind. Of course, I feel like that, but maybe I shouldn't actually say that.
I'll rate it. No, because actually, looking at pace-wise, he actually, over the course of the year, his race pace relative to Pierre, his qualifying pace relative to Pierre, wasn't that far off.
Yeah, he just makes some mistakes.
And the mistakes are so glaring as well.
Yeah.
You can't drive into your teammate.
Yeah, Silverstone was bad. Canada was bad.
Spinning it in the pit, yeah.
Singapore was bad.
But so
Singapore less bad.
Yuki's the most obvious one. What other drivers are we? Go on. What
I think
one each?
in a different way, I'm going to go Carlos Sainz because I feel like one thing he's not on the pressure side. I don't think like loses.
He ain't losing his job, but I hear you.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
But I think Carlos Sainz, he had a relatively quite a good start to Ferrari in 2021 when he was obviously I know that he beat Leclerc, but Leclerc was still the quicker driver in 2021. But it was still amazing. You know, he was competitive. Like Ferrari were kind of on the up, and the driver lineup. Kind of similar to 2022 and McLaren Alpine, the driver lineup made the difference for Ferrari in 2021 to beat McLaren. Now he didn't kick on in 2022 when he was given a race-winning car. And when you are, it's kind of a similar argument that I have with Lando. Like I'm looking forward to seeing Lando in a race-winning car because that asks you very different questions.
Yeah.
When those questions were put to Sainz at the beginning of the season, he was cracking. He was not on Leclerc's level. He was not nowhere near. And even though he did get his first win. He obviously has pole positions.
I think Australia was a good example of what you just said because he was overdriving, desperately trying to make up positions and ended up
binning it.
And I want to see him.
Playing in the
Twice,
sand.
right? Didn't he go twice? I think.
Exactly. Like after like 2 laps or something, it was. I think he was just like frustrated.
Yeah.
And I want to see him perform because I do think that there is a good driver in Sainz. I don't think he's quite as quick as Leclerc, but I also think he's got a few little attributes that are better than Leclerc. He can actually call out the strategy a lot. He's a lot more kind of better at calling out the strategy when he sees it. Leclerc kind of trusts the team a little bit more. So there's positives and negatives, but he needs to have a good start because if they do give him a championship winning car, he needs to show that he can actually, fight for it. Otherwise, he's going to become Leclerc's number 2.
I think that's the crucial thing. It's not about losing a job. It's about like, what are you going to be seen as by the team?
Yeah.
And to be honest, he did bring it back pretty well. Like, I don't think the difference between him and Leclerc in terms of points was as bad, certainly as it was at the first half of the season when Leclerc was winning races
Did he
consistently.
get beaten by Russell, by the way, in the championship? I forget this year.
I think he did.
Carlos did.
Yeah, so look,
Sticky
That's
one.
not, that's not good.
Look, I think as well. You look at Russell was the one who torpedoed him at Austin.
I was going to say, the one thing I do have faith in Carlos is that he did get it together.
Engine went boom in Austria as well.
Yeah, he did pull it back towards the second half of the season. I think his momentum actually, hopefully going into next season, will take him through. Because, that pole in Kota.
But he needs to start on the front foot because there were also some races. I remember Singapore. He was like, I didn't even notice him in the race. Like, he was just there, like 30 seconds behind Leclerc.
Completely off the pace a few times.
And you just
It's inconsistent.
And keep in mind, if Mercedes do, because I think there's almost like this general feeling like Mercedes are probably going to overtake Ferrari. Like there's more confidence in Mercedes to do better than Ferrari. Like
there is,
it's only going to get tighter next year. Lewis and George are only going to get closer, and he needs to start the season on the front foot.
Well, in terms of gaps between teammates towards the top of the order, is there an argument for Sergio Perez being slightly under pressure? Because if Ferrari and Mercedes are close to Red Bull, hypothetically, he cannot afford to be 150 points behind his teammate. That won't run.
150.
Yeah, and I know Max Verstappen had an unbelievable season, won 15 races or whatever. However, Red Bull were not lucky, but Red Bull were lucky that they had such a dominant car.
They were in the privileged position.
They were in a privileged position of being. It was like Bottas at Mercedes.
Exactly.
Where it was kind of like, if you actually had a challenge, you'd be fucked. You would be finished right now because Bottas is not bringing in enough points. It's having disaster classes every now and again. Perez is not the level of Bottas at Mercedes. Perez is better than Bottas was at Mercedes. But 150
I don't know about
points.
that, actually. I'll disagree with that because Bottas was able to at least push Lewis like in qualifying sessions and get a few. But I think they're kind of at similar levels. I always think of the thing with Sergio Perez, I know he's doing technically a bad job relative to Max, but I just keep thinking to myself, where were Red Bull 2 or 3 years ago? They were swapping drivers in and out. They were getting hot under the collar.
Yeah.
Just for the moment, you're riding this wave. Max is winning championships. Checo's kind of fighting for second. Just kind of ride it out for the moment. Don't kind of put too much pressure on him at the moment. But ultimately, he does have that long-term contract, I think, until the end of 2024. So, technically there's no seat, but we know Red Bull contracts are like, toilet paper, mate.
Perez knows all about having a contract that didn't come to be.
Exactly.
And Vettel came in for his
even
seat.
though he's doing not a great job, I totally agree. I think in context, I'm just like, he's doing okay for Red Bull standards. You like chop and change drivers like Ferrari chop and change team principles, to be fair.
This is my thing about if Ferrari are able to close that performance gap and potentially other teams, getting up there and potentially, in and about in qualifying. I mean, we saw like towards the end of the year, it felt like the Alpines and the McLarens qualifying pace. Like I think Abu Dhabi, that they were within the kind of that second kind of window. You just think that relative gap between Sergio and Max, it has to close. They have to find a way. Because I don't think Sergio's like any worse a driver than like a Carlos Sainz, for example. I think they're very on par. But like,
I
they
want
have
to
to
ask
find
you
a way.
If he does, let's say, get caught out, has a few more disaster classes in 2023, who do you think replaces him? Is it definitely Ricciardo? Or is there someone else?
I mean,
perhaps?
surely that's like, I know Christian's gone on record and be like, no, we've got a contract. And he kept repeating contract. I'm like, yeah, we know you've got a contract. Yeah. Like, surely they're gonna be considering it if what I've just said comes to be. If it's similar to this year just gone, where Red Bull are quite clear and Checo is able to do enough of a job to support Max and to be up there and pick up the pieces, then fine, maybe carry on. But if it's more competitive at the front, and they've got data on Daniel, they've got they know how to set up a car for Daniel Ricciardo for him to drive just as, if not quicker than Max Verstappen.
Yeah.
That's a fact. Yes, Max isn't the same driver as he used to be necessarily, but I don't think pace is Max's biggest gain since 2018, the last season they raced together. I just think his consistency, his mindset, his decision making, I think that's where Max has improved. But Daniel Ricciardo could on merit outpace Max Verstappen numerous times over the course of a season when they were last together.
Yeah.
Who would you put Niran if it wasn't Checo, except for Latifi?
Yuki Tsunoda.
There we go. That is the correct answer.
Get him in. Honda connections.
The funny thing is, ideally, I think Red Bull would like that. Like the whole point of the junior team is to put someone like a Yuki in there.
It ain't happening. There's no one ready.
But they've got so much
back.
data on so many drivers, and they've got data on Perez. They're going to start getting some data on Ricciardo now to see if they've got a McLaren Ricciardo on their hands or a Red Bull / Renault Ricciardo on their hands because they're two very different drivers. And it's just like, I think they're in a good place, really. Red Bull in a great place to see out this season, see if Checo can step up and can close that gap.
Yep.
If he can, great. If he can't, they've got options.
Yeah.
I mean, we'll see. That Red Bull seat doesn't matter what contract they give you. You'll go a year per year. Like you can get sacked the next race, you know what I mean? So yeah, that pressure's always going to be on. I remember there was a few questions it was kind of being asked mid-season, but obviously Checo came back, won Singapore, and it kind of like, all Checo needs to do is win 2 or 3 races a year, and it kind of silences the noise a little bit. But we'll see if we'll be able to do that.
Yeah.
But even that, like,
That's crazy though, isn't it? When you think about
but Singapore, like Max had 2 laps that could have been pole, and then the team didn't put enough fuel in the car.
Yeah.
But again, that's another instance. If Ferrari made that mistake, we'd be clowning.
True, actually. I don't think enough was
because it's Red Bull. Because we just forget about it.
I think they won the next 5 after
Putting
that.
Max
So
on the wrong tire. That's what I mean. They bought enough credit to get away with it. Yeah, putting him on the wrong tire.
Brownie points, innit?
Yeah.
If you rack up enough, then when you make a mistake, everyone's like, it's fine.
Exactly.
When you're Ferrari and you're doing it every week, it's kind of
exactly like
different.
Red Bull have that credit in the bank. That's the
Exactly.
difference. So,
Yeah,
but with
exactly.
Ferrari, we're like, screw every single thing. Like, oh my god, is he put the right tire on?
Yes, Ferrari are in debit. Red Bull are
Exactly.
in
Yeah,
credit.
they're in overdraft.
They're in overdraft.
Oh yeah, they're struggling to meet the payments.
Yeah.
Michael Mass is going to be knocking on the door. Debt collection. Right, we're going to wrap this up with a bit of a
L segment that we debuted.
bit of a new segment. And actually, we might not wrap up with this. I think we've got a bit of time. Actually, you know what? We'll save the final segment to the end.
Okay.
I want to talk about driver pairings for next year, 2023.
Oh God.
There's going to be there's 10 teams, 10 pairs. So let's do the bottom 5.
We're doing the bottom 5 this
What do we
week.
think the weakest 5 pairings? Now, we had a little chat beforehand, and we to come up with our own bottom 5.
Yeah.
So we haven't compared notes. So it'll be interesting. I'm just gonna keep my phone away from you.
Yeah.
I've got it all up here, mate.
You've got it all up there.
It's
All
stored
stored. Yeah.
off the dome.
Reading on the train for 2 hours.
So should we start with the 6th best? So the first worst. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
First worst. The
Does that make
best of the
sense?
worst.
Yeah.
The best of the worst.
So
yeah,
we're going from 6th to 10th. Okay.
Yeah.
The bottom 5.
I haven't done mine in order, by the way. I've just ran.
You've not done it. Oh, so, okay.
Sorry.
He's going to have to do it on the fly.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I guess on the
you guys
fly,
get
it's fine. I'll work
vibes
it out.
only.
Do you want me to start with mine, actually?
You start with yours. Yeah.
I'll go with
Yeah,
mine, yeah. So
P6.
the best of the worst, I'm going to go with Aston Martin. I think...
Alonso and Stroll.
Exactly, yeah. Fernando Alonso and Lance Stroll. Fernando Alonso is almost, in a weird way, kind of a like-for-like replacement with Seb. I think Pat's driving a little bit better at this stage of his career, but, I think it's just a question of motivation. Like, Fernando will be right up there if he's given the car with the likes of the McLarens and Alpines. But I still have a doubt about Lance Stroll. I don't think that team is very balanced in terms of, like, when you look at Alpine, like, this year, Ocon and Alonso were amazing. Like, they're really complemented in terms of the points that they scored. Maybe not, in terms of the chemistry, but I don't think Aston Martin's like that. I still think it's going to be mostly Fernando scoring the points. And when you look at what Lance Stroll, and we've had this debate so many times, I am not seeing development from this guy over the past 2-3 years. Like, he has been in Formula One since 2017. 2017. And I feel like he hasn't still developed. And even this year, USA Austin was a massive chance for him. That could have been an amazing weekend. He was best of the rest. He was in the podium after like the first lap, and he still makes a mistake in that one crucial and bins it into his future teammate.
Yeah.
And then I feel like that's the biggest problem, is that I'm not seeing this consistency from Lance. And if they do make a better car, they're going to be amongst the Alpines and the McLarens, and that is a cutthroat midfield. And that's why I feel like this kind of lineup, it's better than the next one I'm going to talk about, but I still don't think it's a great lineup. Like, if you with Lance Stroll there, I'm just not sure about him still.
I think with Stroll, he was a little bit closer to Vettel than I think we sometimes give him credit for.
Yeah.
During last season,
I don't think pace was a massive issue.
It is quite literally consistency. And,
He just does stupid things.
decision making.
Decision making,
Like-
not checking his mirrors.
Kota was actually mental. Like, what are you doing? And I think he knew it exactly at the moment. Like, oh shit, what have I done? That was so dumb. And Brazil as well. Like, was it the next Grand Prix?
Yeah,
or
it was
two
like,
Grand Prix after?
he almost took his, so
Almost take out Vettel. Like,
it was unreal.
And I was, are you not learning from like what?
Well, he
just
did
took
the
you out
same
of
thing in
Grand Prix?
Brazil 2021 to Sonoda. Like,
Yeah.
I remember there was Yuki sent it up the inside, and for me, Lance just turned in like he wasn't there.
Yeah.
That I understand more though. Again, but when it's your teammate, like, he properly squeezed like Vettel onto the
That's
grass.
what I mean. Like, I think that's
Okay.
Lance's biggest issue.
Yeah.
But I guess the question is, how much does Fernando, who's driving at these insane levels seemingly, and assuming he'll carry on, how much does he compensate for, I guess, Lance's misgivings? But also, does Lance improve a little bit next year?
I think Fernando could.
Will he
improve.
ever learn from his mistakes?
I was about to say Fernando could improve Lance, but he's just been teammates with Sebastian Vettel, hasn't he? And it's
Like-
not really changed.
Honestly, I think Lance is going to be like Alonso's bottle boy. Honestly, it's going to be, he's going to absolutely dominate him. Like,
He's-
whitewashing qualifying.
He is going to dominate him. I don't. Again, I think Lance does have like value at a mid-table team. The problem is that like where points are so much like gold dust in the midfield, it almost accentuates the thing that we've been talking about with Red Bull, and there being a gap between teammates even more to an extent, because being 2 tenths off is like fucking 9 places in the midfield.
Especially the further up. That's honestly, that's bang on. Like, the further up you get, it only gets harder. It doesn't get easier. When you're racing against the likes of like Sonoda and like, Latifi at the back, that's not the same as racing against like Lando or like, Gasly at the front and Alpines and McLarens. Like, it's only going to get harder. And does he have that extra gear to kind of finish best of the rest in some races?
Well, this is where
There have been points in his career and little spikes where I've been like, yo, no, this guy actually is pretty decent.
He was, pole sitter in 2020.
Turkey was, that
was a madness.
Weather typically, apart from Hungary last year, weather typically is pretty good as well. Again, this is the thing where points can be like, say for example, you finish, I don't know, there's 10 races and you finish P10, all 10 of those races, you get 10 points, and your teammate finishes P8, they get 40 points. And you're like, does it really, like, that's where I think that, like with Bottas and Joe, it was a bit deceptive how big that gap was in terms of the actual differential. But what about you for P6?
My P6.
Do you agree, or you?
I'm actually probably going to go with Aston in a second. But first of all, my first of the worst. Oh shit, boy, that's good. That's bar. We've got Alpine.
Whoa.
Interesting.
For
Interesting.
not the reason of pace at all. I just want to clarify that and get that off my chest. It's not because Esteban Ocon and
He predicted
Pierre
Gasly to finish best of the rest, by the way, in 2022.
No.
I was wrong.
Okay, fair enough.
We move.
We keep it moving. I think Pierre Gasly and Esteban Ocon are both sensational drivers. However, we spoke before about chemistry and dynamics between teammates, and they hate each other. And I'm still bitter about France
Allegedly
knocking us out of the World Cup. So
Yeah, true. French team with French drivers. Yeah, that's fair.
Anyone can get it. Hold that.
I'll come back to that.
So why is that lineup bad? Just too French.
Too French.
Far too French.
Shouts out the pain au chocolat massive. But
Listen, Otmar's got a challenge on his hands to control them too, because you know who was team principal at Force India when Perez and Ocon kept crashing into each other?
Yep.
Why's
Otmar's
that now?
having a jinx, bad luck, 1, 2, 3. You can't talk anymore, huh?
Not ideal on the podcast.
Anyway, yeah, exactly. No insight. No, look, I hear you. You know what I mean? Like,
It's not for pace. I think they'll qualifying pace, whatever. But I
Especially-
think you might get some incidents.
especially if Alpine are which they look most set to break into that top and get in podiums. The higher you get up the order, the more that I feel like teammates typically have to prove relative to
Yeah.
each other. You know what I mean?
and can start to clash.
Yeah.
If they miss out on fourth in the Constructors' Championship because they keep crashing into each other.
I mean, the thing about those two is that, and I've seen Ocon, post a few like little selfies with Gasly, both of them smiling. Yeah, we've squashed whatever beef we had, X amount of years ago. But when you're out on track and when it gets heated, the way I've described it is that even if they squash whatever beef they've had, that's still a trigger in the back of their minds. And when things do get heated, it's just going to get more toxic quicker than otherwise with a driver where they don't have any prior relationship. So
Yeah.
I just don't. And the thing is, both of them have to perform. Like, Ocon was given that long-term contract. He's got to beat Gasly. Like, you can't be given a long-term contract and then be beaten by the guy straight away. And also, Gasly's going to think, like, I don't think we know how good Gasly is. Like, he's 2021, he was unbelievable in terms of like one lap pace. And again, it was Yuki kind of holding the team back. But then this year, he seemed a little bit less motivated, especially the end of the season didn't quite end very well. So even Gasly's got a point to prove. Like, how good is Pierre Gasly if you put him in the same car as a Carlos Sainz or an Ocon or a Lando? So both of those drivers have a lot to prove, and both of them are not going to want to finish behind their teammates. So how well are they going to work together as teammates before their kind of self-agenda kind of kicks in,
I'm also concerned about that. But I've not put them to P6 in my list.
Who's yours?
I've actually, and I've got it written down here, so I'm not just saying this to we're all going to have a different one.
Yeah.
I've actually said Hulkenberg Magnussen, P6.
Ooh, really?
Yeah. Which I think is probably higher than I think most people would maybe put them. But I think that you've got two very reliable, I would say, in terms of performance levels. I know K-Mag got a lot of meatball flags last year, but I mean, he was very unfortunate.
Kept bending it into like Lewis and Max on lap one.
And look, I think they're both examples of drivers who have had a lot of misfortune in their career, but in terms of their performance, and I think in terms of, what Haas need going forward, I think, I don't think they're anything special. I think they're going to change the world, but I think they're in a pretty good place. I wouldn't say they're particularly exciting drivers. I mean, Kevin just did 12 hours a Daytona with his dad as well, by the way. Finished P7. Shout out Kevin Magnussen. Well done.
And Jan.
And Daddy Jan.
Daddy Jan.
Love that.
I get with Haas in terms of like they've got like an experienced lineup that aren't going to bin it as often.
And I know Kevin told him to suck his balls,
Yeah.
but it's not that deep, is it really? Come
I think
on,
both of them have
think
said
they'll be
like,
fine.
it's not.
that was just funny.
Yeah.
I think they'll get along well. I think they'll.
Somebody's
they'll
put that
be
on a t-shirt, by the
decent.
way. Like, that'll sell.
Haas merch, official Haas merch.
Haas merch, yeah.
Gunter's going to be all over that.
Balls everywhere.
Surviving to drive the book.
Have you seen he's got a book out?
Yes.
Yeah,
Oh,
surviving
we've
to
talked all
drive.
about it.
Yeah, shocking.
All right, okay, right. let's move P7 then.
Yeah.
So I am going to go with Haas. They're my kind of seventh place.
Anything more to add that I haven't already?
I think that I still think that if they had car for car, I think that Fernando Alonso makes enough of a difference over the course of a race distance to kind of prop that driver lineup with Lance Stroll over Haas. I feel like Haas have a very solid driver lineup, exactly what they need. Like, not too much noise, maybe not the most exciting, but I still think that the Fernando Alonso effect is kind of better than Haas. But yeah, that's why I've got them over. But it's, again, they're close to me. That's why I've got them 6th and 7th.
Okay. Well, I have gone Gasly Ocon.
You're not even going to let Niran say his?
No, I like that because you've gone them even lower than me. I thought everyone was going to have them
I'm
as a five.
concerned. I think that the combination of me having faith that Alpine are gonna, as much as I said Aston Martin earlier, I definitely think Alpine I would maybe even, if I had to bet today, I'd probably actually bet on Alpine more than I would McLaren for next year.
Really?
Honest, yeah.
Fair enough.
I think I would. But
And you think their driver lineup is that bad?
no, I just think that combination of that team looking to get podiums consistently, these two drivers who've been in the sport for a long time, with all their background on top of it, with Ocon's inability, like he races all or nothing, regardless of if they're your teammate or not.
Yeah.
I just think that combination, if I had to bet on it today, I think the teammate combination will let themselves down. And I think like Norris and Piastri will, for example, if they're close in the McLaren, even maybe Alonso Stroll, will outperform.
Oh, don't get me wrong. I do think that they're going to collide and they're going to clash at some point, the Alpine guys. But they're still quality drivers. They're still
doubt.
I don't see them like there's.
But so's Lando.
See,
I think Oscar will be. So's Fernando. So's all these these other drivers in the
they've still
midfield
got
are.
two quality. Don't get me wrong. Alpine fumbled the bag massively in 2022. There's no doubt about it. But they've still got two quality drivers.
And also, Ocon did get very much outperformed by Alonso this year.
But-
And Gasly did.
He brought it to him a bit more, but yeah, in terms of like,
Yeah, but Ocon was
obviously-
closer to Alonso in 21 than he was
yeah,
in 22.
yeah, fair enough, yeah.
100%.
But he was still there. Like the thing is, Ocon. Of course, Ocon got a little bit lucky, but that doesn't mean that he didn't do a good job. Like he was super close to Fernando Alonso. He was always there, kind of in the points. I don't think he had like spectacular races, but that's why I think. And Pierre Gasly, how motivated is he going to be? I just think that. Even though I do think there's going to be a bit of toxicity, I think the quality of those two drivers I think it props them up over lineups like the Haas driver lineup and even the Aston Martin driver lineup, just because there's just too much quality, even if I do think there's going to be a bit of toxicity.
And I think if there's any environment where two drivers could really fall out even further, it's probably Alpine. There seems to be toxicity there anyway.
And Otmar, like you said, he's not very good at handling it.
This is what I mean.
Drama.
These are all coming into my thoughts.
My
What about you?
seventh. I don't even have a huge amount to say about this, but I feel like they're a little bit underrated. Alfa Romeo's driver lineup. Valtteri Bottas, experienced. If you looked at the start of last year, I think if you gave them a car that didn't blow up all the time and actually was slightly developed, I think you'd have seen a lot more from Alfa Romeo this season. I think we've kind of just forgotten about them because of recency bias, and they just kind of dropped off. Guan Yu Zhou got points in his first race, had a lot of other opportunities to score points, but then car blew up.
And also,
Bottas looked really good at the start of the season. So
Zhou didn't even like crash. Like if you compare, say, I know a lot of people said obviously like forget 2021 in terms of that being mixed, like rookie season. Like even if you compare Mick to Zhou in like 2022, sure Mick was a little bit quicker because he has that he does have that knowledge having not been a rookie, but Zhou did not crash pretty much at all basically. Like except for maybe a little scrape with Gasly.
Joe and Sonoda. I think,
Exactly.
Similar comparison.
yeah.
Exactly. So I
Zhou's
think
not very Zhou doesn't make mistakes.
he's got a really good. I feel like he's got a really good base. Like he doesn't crash a lot. He was quite fairly consistent. He was a lot closer to Bottas in qualifying. He just needs the car and that little bit more experience now, knowing all of the tracks. And I think he could be a solid driver, I think. And I think he proved a lot of people wrong because when he did get announced, I do remember there was a lot of people going,
I had that.
almost Mazepin 2.0. There was a lot of like, just pay driver, he wasn't even that good in Formula 2. But yeah, I think he's actually proven a lot of people wrong. I'm not saying he's amazing. I'm not saying he's a world champion, but I think he has the ability to be a fairly decent midfield driver.
Yeah.
So give him the car, Alfa Romeo.
Do it.
Right, what about your number 8, Aldas?
You just said it. My number 8 is also Alfa Romeo. So I've gone Aston Martin, then I've gone Haas, then I've gone Alfa Romeo with Zhou and Bottas.
And so have I, by the way.
Pretty
You've
cool.
gone Alfa Romeo P8?
I've gone
Copied
Alfa
me.
Romeo P8.
No, I
Anything
agree
more
with
to add?
everything. I think Bottas, again, I think Alfa just really suited him because in Mercedes there was a lot of pressure. He was never he had some good seasons. I think 2019 was a good Mercedes season, but we saw in 2021, he was nowhere near the championship fight. At Alfa Romeo, much less pressure. His own team as well, and kind of a better environment for him, kind of less of the media and stuff. And he really excelled at the beginning of the season. Like we saw, I think he qualified like 5th in Miami or something, and he was a really good point scorer. And just give him a good car, and I think that could be a really good, driver lineup. But
I've got one question around Valtteri, right? So he jumped into the Alfa Romeo first year, started the season well, and obviously he's coming into this team from Mercedes, having had he's never driven a Ferrari-powered car before, I think. He's coming in, and the car that he was given was good at the start of the year. And as the season went on, the car seemed to get progressively just worse, less consistent, which we saw that with various different teams, and it's all relative. Obviously, the Aston Martin improved a lot, which I think played a big part in it. But I do wonder is Valtteri... Has he shown me now he's that guy to really spearhead that team long-term going forward? I don't think... we saw a really capable Valtteri at the start of the year, but it does worry me a little bit that he wasn't able to help that team stay somewhat competitive for the remainder of the year.
Yeah.
I don't know. That's a question.
do you think maybe although the car did get worse, maybe we're over-egging it a little bit. Like, do you think he kind of cost the team a little bit? I mean, they did finish ahead of Aston Martin by like 1 point in the constructors.
And Joe did really catch up as well.
Yeah.
I mean, I get that. I suppose next year's going to be the big kind of tester for him. He's beaten kind of his rookie teammate, as he should have. He's got to continue that. He's got to continue to be the team leader.
This is why I put
maybe he's even like a driver that's like a tiny bit under pressure of just kind of like, what are his team leading capacities? Like how good is he at doing that in a midfield team?
Also,
my P8 has to be different. I've gone for Haas here.
Oh, wow.
In my mind.
Interesting.
So a little bit lower than you guys.
Not backing it. Not backing it.
I honestly, cool experience. And I rate K-Mag, I do. I think he's had a great season coming back in out of just fucking nowhere, just not even having the seat and then just coming in, grabbing a pole. He's had some other good races like Spain, where he should have been higher up. And then obviously the incident on lap 1, whatever, he's just got to iron those out, I guess. Or he's just been unlucky as well with the M-Fence situation. I just don't think Nico Hülkenberg is going to come in and be that competitive, lads. I'm going to be totally honest with you. I know he's been a solid midfield driver.
Maybe.
But he's had, 2 full years out?
Mm-hmm. With the odd appearance.
With the odd appearance here and there, where he has come in and looked relatively decent.
He did 2 races at the start of...
He qualified Lance in Bahrain.
Yeah, that was pretty
he
bad.
did.
After not driving the car until Friday.
That was
I hear it. I just don't know whether across like a whole season. Like I feel like
I think that's more about Lance, by the way. But
yeah, it is.
Maybe,
you're right. I think if you come in and do like a one-off race, we've seen it with Nick De Vries. Sometimes you can like really come in and just like be outstanding because like there's no pressure on you. Everyone goes, whatever you do, you've done well.
Everything's a bonus.
Everything's a bonus. But I think across an entire season, I just don't know if you'd actually really see the same Nico Hülkenberg of like 20,
that's the thing.
15, whatever.
That's what Haas are banking on. They're banking on they're going to get the consistent Hulk, who was like best of the rest 2018.
He'll still be consistent. I just don't know, man. Like,
it's hard to get too excited.
Lineup,
yeah.
You know?
It's a very mid driver lineup, but it almost feels like that's kind of what Haas need.
Yeah.
They need 2 mid drivers that are actually consistent.
If that was the drivers lineup in 2016 or something, or 2015, I'd be like, fuck.
That's the thing. You feel like those two have reached their ceiling.
Yeah.
It's hard to imagine them
and come back down the stairs.
Yeah, like there's only one way now. Yeah. It feels like they're only going to either stay at the level or get a little bit worse. But, all right, P9.
So I've only got 2 left. I am next going to go with Alpha Tauri. Yuki Tsunoda, my guy Yuki, and also obviously Nick De Vries as well. By the way, what a strange like driver lineup for some reason, in my opinion. Like Yuki now the team leader, Nick De Vries 6 months ago. By the way, he was just some Formula E driver that no one even knew. He was just the guy that was like jumping in. I'm not.
Nick.
That is honestly like before he actually did like before Monza. I swear to God, like no one, all they knew about him is that he was like jumping in the cars left, right, and now he's kind of like this big kind of Red Bull. Like they kind of pinched him a little bit from like the likes of Alpine and Williams. And, potentially Marco kind of might want him in the Red Bull and stuff like that. So what a strange driver lineup, but I'm really looking forward to this one. I still think that I'm not quite sure about Yuki. And also we don't know what Nick De Vries is going to be like in the Alpha Tauri. And also the team didn't produce a great car. And it doesn't necessarily mean that they're going to bounce back next year and produce a better one. So there's also a little doubt about that. And I just think not a lot of experience, not a lot of... also a bit of star factor as well. I want to see Yuki kick on, but I just think I have so many doubts about that team, that driver lineup, but hopefully I'm wrong.
A lot of questions.
Yeah. I wouldn't be surprised if Yuki loses out to Nick De Vries as well.
It's happening. It's written in the stars. I'm sorry. I love you, Yuki, but it's probably going to happen. I'm so torn on 9th and 10th, which I really shouldn't be because it's literally just 9th and 10th. I think I'm going to go with Alpha Tauri as well. Because we all know who the 10th team's going to be. But I think I'm going to go with Alpha Tauri because I think out of the 2 drivers coming in, one for Williams and one for Alpha Tauri, I think Nick De Vries is stronger. He has more pedigree. Mm-hmm. He's already shown, like in an F1 car, that he can do the business of like 1 Grand Prix. And again, F2 champion, Formula E champion, all this jazz, whatever. Yuki does worry me. But I think Nick De Vries has enough to make it at least like a semi-decent partnership. But I think this will be the end of Yuki. I think Nick De Vries wins.
I mean,
just
to kind of like put it into perspective, like Nick De Vries he's not even a young driver anymore. Like he is a seasoned veteran. He had multiple seasons in Formula 2, won the title. He's had multiple seasons in Formula E, won the title. And even this year, like I'm pretty sure Nick De Vries has driven more 2022 F1 cars than any other person on the planet. I don't think there's anyone else who's driven more.
It's like tapas.
You can't get
a little bit of everything.
Exactly. You know? Does anyone remember what is it in Brazil when Lando had, I think, a few too many, or had food poisoning? He almost got into the McLaren as well for Brazil. So he is honestly in the modern era with the lack of testing, he is the most experienced rookie you could possibly have.
He's a renaissance man.
Exactly.
Formula 1. It's crazy.
So that's why I think he might probably beat Yuki Tsunoda. But I still don't think that as a combination is maybe better than say the Haas, for example.
Yeah, he's not the conventional rookie. What do you reckon I'm gonna say?
Yeah, you're gonna go.
Albon Sargent.
Yeah, to back the boys.
Biased, that's what I'm saying.
Okay, so let me lay out my my argument. Okay.
Wrong. Cool.
So Albon, great year, 22. I think we can all agree clear of Tsunoda.
Yeah, no, agree.
Comfortably, and clear of De Vries. Yes, he's done well in certain. I mean, De Vries was behind Albon in F2 when Alex graduated. Yeah,
I mean, that was many moons ago now, mate.
Okay, I'm just laying out the full kind of context. Look, I just think that Albon's bringing some, he's got really good momentum going into his second year at Williams. He's got a point to prove to himself in terms of whether Williams will be that team for him to take him forward, or he needs to put himself in the shop window. So I think he's going to be super motivated to drive the nuts off whatever car they give him. All the tits, either or.
Both.
Take your pick. Yeah, certainly, why not? Logan Sargent. Now, look, obviously, in Formula 3, when Oscar won, Logan pushed Piastri right to the end. Difficulty with budget, stayed in Formula 3, weaker team. In Formula 2, Rookie of the Year, the way he finished Abu Dhabi with all that pressure and expectation that Joska Pito put on him, I thought was pretty impressive. I think, they've had a lot of testing with him, with Logan. I've been backing Logan this year in F2, so this is heavily biased take. I'm more than happy. I don't need to say this. You know this. You're full aware. But I do think there is certainly an argument that, I think Albon and Sargent is a driver pairing I'm more confident in. I think there's more questions for me around both Tsunoda and De Vries. There's a lot of questions around both. Is it
almost like risk versus reward? Maybe you could say that's more risky lineup, but
there's questions around Sargent, but I think Alex, I feel like we know where he's at. I think he's been pretty solid. Very, very few shunts in 2022. He got a lot of that experience in Red Bull. As tough as it was for him, I think he's now a better driver for it. Yeah. So I think as a package, I do. I've got more confidence in Albon Sargent.
You know what? Fuck it. I'm a young, impressionable mind. You've convinced me.
Oh, he's done it.
Are you joking?
I'm leaving the
career in politics.
You're getting up on me now. Yeah. It's unreal.
It was the Sargent. I forgot that he challenged Piastri in F2. I was like, oh yeah, no, he's actually.
I just feel like
Listen, let me say straight.
There's less variables.
First of all, okay, I get the Formula 3 thing, and that was very impressive. That was in 2020, many moons ago. So I think you've got to look at what's happened over the past two or so years. I still think Sargent, he had a very good rookie season in Formula 2, but it wasn't anything extraordinary. And when you look at the field, it wasn't the fact that there was even a question of him kind of. What I found funny is that some people were saying, "Oh, no, he's going to hang. Is he going to get the super license points?" If he didn't, I don't think he would have deserved to be in Formula 1. So he kind of got, he hanged on to it, which is fair enough. And I do want to see him do well. But
it was an all right F2 grid.
Yeah,
it wasn't crazily strong.
Exactly. So I feel like he still has a lot of questions in terms of how is he going to.
Yeah, I agree.
How is he going to react when he gets to Formula 1?
Yeah, I hear that.
Obviously, with Alex, I think he's had a really good season. I'm looking forward to seeing him in a better car as well. But I still think, I don't think there's I think just the combination of De Vries, who I think is going to be very, very solid, and also I think Yuki Tsunoda's got to be a little bit better than hopefully Logan Sargent. So that's why I've got them over. But I just feel like with Williams as well, and the one that you forget, I still think that there's a bigger question on Williams than any other team as well. So what kind of car are they going to give someone like Logan Sargent? Are they going to give him a terrible car? And when you have to learn in a really bad car, it just makes that development even harder. It makes it's more difficult to kind of start running a lot faster. So that's I think that's why it just brings that lineup down. Not only the experience, but also the fact that I don't think Williams is kind of the best team for rookie drivers where they are now.
It's fair.
There's a better support. There's a better support system at AlphaTauri, and that's why they're going to have a better driver lineup.
So what's your final 6 to 10?
So mine is oh god, you've put me on spot. Right. So mine's Hulkenberg, Magnussen P6,
yeah, so Haas,
Gasly Ocon P7, Bottas Joe P8. Albon Sargent P9 and Tsunoda De Vries P10.
All right, sensational. Mine was Alpine in P6 because of the World
vibes.
Vibe. In P7, I believe I put Alfa Romeo. In P8 was Haas. 9, I switched it at the end, so Williams, and then 10 AlphaTauri. Aldas.
Unbelievable. I had Aston Martin, then I had Haas, then I had Alfa Romeo, then I had AlphaTauri, and then I had Williams in last.
Just had to really.
And I had conviction with my choices, but I didn't jump at the end.
I didn't even order mine. I didn't even know we were ordering them.
Political persuasion here.
Yeah.
Right. Okay.
We'll do our top 5 in the next pod.
Yes, exactly.
So stick around for that. We've got one final segment that we need to get.
Finally, yes, we will get. This has been a long podcast. Thank you, producer Lewis, for being so patient with us.
Sorry about that.
Working overtime.
But the content doesn't write itself. Right. Okay. So, equal machinery section.
Yeah, it's time.
Final section of
We
the
had
pod.
Checo Perez versus Daniel Ricciardo last time. In what? In equal machinery, who would come out on top?
Yes.
We've obviously got 3 people though today.
Three
Aldas
people.
as a guest.
So we
drivers.
have picked 3 different drivers. We've been randomly assigned a driver each, and we have to give an argument as to why we think the driver we've been assigned. So we don't necessarily believe they are the quickest of the 3 in equal machinery.
Well,
we have to
been
give
assigned them.
as compelling an argument as we can.
So this is
why
why
they are.
Nicholas Latifi is actually quicker than Max Verstappen. Do you know what I mean?
Basically.
Yeah.
And it's funny you say that because actually it's Max Verstappen. It's not really. I'm joking. So today's 3 drivers. We thought we'd go with the old timers.
Yeah, we're
There's a
going
lot of
Goatgate here.
We're going Hamilton, Vettel, Alonso.
Oof.
3 of them in equal machinery today.
Right.
So
Today, not just in history, today, or in history as well.
producer Lewis has assigned us Aldas. You have Fernando Alonso.
Surprise, surprise.
I have Lewis Hamilton,
Okay.
which
So
means you have Sebastian Vettel.
Sebastian.
I'm going to make you start, Aldas, because you love Fernando.
Yeah.
And I think you will have no problem backing this one. So should we give you should I get a little timer actually?
Give him like a minute and a half.
I might do a little timer. Yeah. So get a little timer up on my phone. Clock app. That'll work.
Here we go. The old man with the technology.
He's just got the one finger.
Where's my glasses?
rolling through?
God, these buttons are a bit small.
All right, go. Hurry up.
Right,
and a half,
Fernando Alonso as the best of the 3. I think in terms of when you look at like the consistency across the entire season, there is not just entire season, the career, like all the way from the beginning, he has adapted to every single car. Now I know people talk about 2007 where he did get beaten by Lewis, but it was only like no points in it. That was many moons ago, and he has developed as a driver since then, as has Lewis as well. He has always been consistent and adaptable to any single car. Like, it's very difficult to measure him in terms of stats because if your argument is just the stats, then I don't even know what you're talking about because like Formula One is so subjective in terms of what car they're given. I think it's all about the fact that he's been so adaptable, not just in Formula One, but out of Formula One as well. He's been pretty dominant against some of his teammates as well. And he's always had that motivation and drive. When you look at another driver, someone like Sebastian Vettel, who sometimes perhaps has made a few more mistakes, Fernando Alonso is someone who doesn't have a lot. He doesn't make too many mistakes. He's been unbelievably adaptable. He's unbelievably quick as well. And I think even though he's not perhaps the quickest qualifier, which I will admit, over the course of a race distance, there is not many drivers in Formula One history that are as motivated, as aggressive, and also as good over the course of an entire race. And that is why, even though he doesn't have the stats or the cars to prove it, whatever car he has been given, he has always extracted the most out of it.
Wow.
Decent. Didn't even need the 1 minute 30. Motor mouth Aldas.
Can I just say, they didn't tell me that we were going to be doing this, so that was just off the top of my head.
That was off the dome.
Unbelievable.
This is what I mean.
We didn't know.
You did him a favour there, Lewis, giving him Alonso.
Yeah.
I'll tell you what. It was like, this is your lucky day. All right, then. Next.
Right.
Vettel.
Sebastian.
Niran. Sebastian.
All right, sensational. Yeah.
Boom.
Let's have it. Right. Sebastian Vettel, 4-time world champion. All the way through the Red Bull era, 2010, 2011, 2012, 2013. Well, no.
Yeah.
Yeah, 2013.
Wow.
Obviously was not beaten by a rookie at any point during his career, but was only beaten by an Australian man in Daniel Ricciardo. So, yeah, a lot of Fernando Alonso
And a
doesn't have that. Next question. But yeah, no, during those 4 years, I mean, Sebastian Vettel was absolutely unbelievable. I know in sort of 2013, the Red Bull was a lot stronger, but in 2012 and 2010, you had a lot of rivals in McLaren and Ferrari. Managed to come out on top during that entire period. I mean, people literally hated him because of how dominant he was during that time. Like,
True.
He was so unbelievably good that we just
takes some
disliked
doing.
him.
That
Talk
takes some doing.
outside of Red Bull. Talk outside of Red Bull.
Sensational. Talk about outside of Red Bull. Okay, Toro Rosso when he won in Monza,
Nice.
2008 in a shocking Toro Rosso car in changeable conditions in the wet. Never really. I mean, I don't even know the last time we saw a driver of that youth do something in a car that was like so far away from being able to win. Like not only sticking it on pole, but then absolutely dominating the Grand Prix as well. Let's be honest, let's be real here. He's had some down points as well, like at Ferrari or whatever. But at first at Ferrari, really, really strong, taking it to Lewis Hamilton in a car that was definitely not superior to the Mercedes monster in the hybrid era. And even at Aston Martin, I feel like he's done a really good job of steadying the ship there and beating Lance Stroll.
Oh, bang on 130. Look at that.
Yeah, man.
Lovely.
Even with us two kind of like poking a few little digs in there. That was a good, I rate that was a good argument. I like that.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right, cool.
We going?
You, Lewis.
We going?
Go again.
Lewis Hamilton, statistically the greatest of all time and quicker than all these three in equal machinery today. Lewis has done it. You talk about Fernando done it in every single piece of machinery he's ever driven. Well, Lewis has won a race in every single year he's raced in F1, apart from this year, but he still managed a P2. And let's be honest, if circumstances had played out slightly differently, he would have 100% picked up a win this year. That is no doubt on his ability, his talent. Look, at the end of the day, you said it yourself, when you're fighting at the front, when you're fighting for wins, to win in every single season is very different to, I beat my teammate in every season I've raced. Yes, look, Lewis Hamilton's teammates have always been top billing. He's raced against Jenson Button, world champion. He's raced against Nico Rosberg, world champion. He's raced against Valtteri Bottas, maybe not a world champion.
Terrible. Heikki Kovalainen.
But still, Heikki Kovalainen, he was in that top 10 of AWS quickest of all time, wasn't he?
Is that your argument? Amazon
Maybe.
AWS.
You know what?
Bring
You know what?
AWS into this.
The data backs me. Look, Lewis does it consistently, even this year, even though he was like, you know what? I will take on the development of the car, right? George, you do your thing, right? I'm going to sort this car out. To sort that Mercedes out from the start to the end of the year, that development in that car, insane. That is, you look at what he did to that Mercedes team, where they were when he joined, when he took it. Everyone criticised it. Everyone was like, why are you leaving McLaren? And he turned it around. He's done it in every single season because he is number one and quicker than Vettel and Fernando in equal machinery today. Done.
Big fan of you managing to do that without mentioning the 7 world titles.
Yeah.
At all, had any.
I mean, he was
outside,
talking
didn't
about the Red Bull days for like 40
Statistically, the
seconds.
greatest
Yeah,
of all
that's
time. Statistically, the greatest, most.
Fair
I didn't even
greatest of
talk
all
about the
time.
world titles with Fernando because that was like so long ago. I forgot about it now.
Yeah.
Okay.
That was fun. I like that.
That was very good from all of us. Off the dome, I think we've done really well there.
I
'cause
like,
there was no
I
real
like doing it
preparation
under
there.
the time limit as well.
Yeah,
a little bit more
keep doing that.
restricted.
It's also, can I just say, it's also a little bit more difficult. You actually have to make the case, even if you maybe don't believe it. But
Well, that's the point of it all. That's the
part
point
of the
of it
game.
all. At this point now, we can sort of guess amongst ourselves whether we do truly believe who we were arguing for is the one that would win in equal machinery.
Equal machinery today.
Equal
That's
machinery today.
well,
So out of-
Seb's retired, so that's a bit difficult to. That's the weird thing. When you say today, are you talking like literally like in the
with their
2022
current
season?
ability, because you look at how like Seb had a really strong season this year. You can't like Seb,
True.
Fernando, and Lewis all had very good 2022s. I think.
A testament to their longevity, especially.
Yes.
Like they've been in the sport for a long time, and they've done an amazing job.
And all in very
Really
different
good
cars
seasons.
as well.
Yeah, exactly.
So what do we actually think?
Aldas, what do you
I mean,
actually think?
I still think Lewis perhaps when everything was right, because even though George kind of outscored him, when everything was right, I think Lewis actually had like 3 or 4 tenths over George some races in qualifying. Yeah. So I still think Lewis is the quicker driver. I do think that I've always kind of rated Fernando and Lewis just a little bit above Seb, just that consistency, purely because I don't think when I rate a driver, and I know that it's a little bit different to what we're doing here, it's not just about what you're doing on the day. It's about a career. It's about a legacy.
Yeah,
In terms of,
longevity as well.
I would still probably back Lewis just because I think in terms of one lap, he is still one of the quickest guys out there. So. But Fernando, and that's the thing with Fernando, qualifying I wouldn't say is kind of his forte.
Yeah.
He's a much better driver on the Sunday in terms of like managing the race and managing tyres and kind of having that whole picture. And the same with Seb as well. I mean, he's had some amazing, perhaps Seb is even a better qualifier than Fernando, but I think Fernando perhaps a little bit stronger in the races. So all of these guys are super close, but at the end of the day for me, I'd still probably put Lewis. And it has nothing to do with me wearing this jumper.
See, I'm not going to lie, I actually thought he believed in Alonso. That was very convincing from you.
I know.
I genuinely thought that. Tommo, with you... No, don't tell me because I want to. We need to guess. So
Albon.
Albon, out of the 3, Alexander Albon. I think you
Alonbon.
Albon. I think you believed it.
Today, right now,
Yeah.
you put all 3 in the same car. But that's the problem. Like, what car are you going to give them as well? It's like
Yeah.
with Fernando,
Fiat
it's
500.
A Renault Clio. French.
Renault Twizy.
I think you believe it. What about you? Do you think he believes it? Do you think he believes Lewis? I think he does.
I actually don't know. No, you know what?
Not helpful whatsoever.
No. So going into this and hearing all your arguments as well, and hearing my own arguments, I think today I actually think Alonso just about
Oi.
edges it out. Because I think that the job, if you actually look at the average deltas pace-wise, and I'm not just talking qualifying one lap pace.
Yeah.
I think qualifying pace, I think Lewis ahead of all three. But I think overall, I think race pace, I don't know, I've just been so impressed with Fernando this year, and I feel that there's been a few little moments from Lewis. I don't think Lewis is at the prime levels that he was setting in 2019, 2020. I think there's been a slight.
So you're saying he's washed?
Down.
That's
And
what
the thing
you're
is,
saying.
because he's coming from
That is what Twitter will say.
He's done.
Yes,
He's
yes.
finished.
and he's still performing at a high level, but because of the high pedestal that he was at,
Exactly.
You know, it's not as if he's like, you know,
If you're up there already, and then you come to there, you're still up there.
Still up.
Yeah.
So I would actually say I think Alonso.
What about me? How was Sebastian Vettel? What do we think? Did I truly believe in what I was saying?
No.
No, from
Nah.
I saw a few.
think
Do you know
there were
the lie
more-
detectors when they like go off? I saw the twitch.
I think there were more receipts you could have brought out that you didn't, and I just think if you really believed it, you
terrible
would have
memory.
had those receipts.
Yeah, I didn't have the receipts.
Yeah, I don't think so.
I'll be honest, lads.
I think
Yeah, no, I didn't believe it. I can confirm.
if you'd have pushed the whole, because how close he got, the fact that he was the challenger to Lewis for 2017 and 18, I think is hugely overlooked.
Yeah, I kind of forgot
amongst
about
his
that. I'm
career.
not gonna lie.
Yeah, which is
I
why
got
you
to,
didn't believe it, 'cause you forgot it.
I got to
Yeah.
15 seconds from the end. I was like, oh yeah, shit, man, 2017, he
Ferrari.
was sick.
He was doing a really good job. It was nice to see
100%
like the
more.
bounce back as well. Kind of 2017 was a great season in terms of like brand new rules, and we did have a championship fight for a little bit. But yeah, I think with Seb, even especially now, I mean, that's why I was kind of asking, like, do you mean right now? I think the motivation isn't quite there. He was still performing at a really high level. Don't get me wrong, like there were some amazing performances. I think Suzuka was stunning, like from Seb, and I think also Austin was another really good race. But I think the likes of Lewis and Fernando, just the motivation, and obviously natural, you know, Seb's leaving. I think the motivation and determination was just a little bit higher in 2022 from kind of what I saw. But
Yeah.
I think it's still a testament to all three of these drivers are still absolutely just incredible.
yeah, indeed.
So who do you actually think then?
Lewis for me.
Yeah.
But it's an edge. It's like very close. It's close between all three of them. Like I love Seb. Like I think the only reason I don't believe in him like as like a GOAT of all time, whatever, is he's had these low points that a lot of the other ones haven't had. Like was it 2019? We got absolutely
18
slapped.
and 19.
18 and 19.
A lot of mistakes.
Losing to Daniel Ricciardo was like a little bit, but not as bad. But getting slapped about by Leclerc was a bit more of a problem. All the spins, whatever. But
Yeah.
in his prime, in his peak, I actually think he might have even been the best out of the three in his peak.
In terms of the most
peak.
dominant period.
There is
Yeah.
no doubt in my mind. The 2013 Seb was better than anything we've seen from Alonso or Hamilton in terms
Yeah.
of 1 year,
Yeah.
one
The
season. like-
ceiling.
exactly for
Yeah,
the ceiling,
higher,
but,
higher.
but that's why just me as a person, I don't judge a driver by one season, one race. I need a body of work in different cars, different teams, and that's what I value. You know, so I don't go over one season or even three. Like,
Well, it's a different
honestly,
conversation, isn't it? If you're going to talk
Exactly,
about
yeah.
a prime, a certain period of time, isolate that from the rest of someone else's career, fine. But if you're talking about totality, you kind of have to take everything, the good and the bad.
You do indeed. You do indeed.
Right, should we wrap it, mate? We've been talking for far too. Well, maybe not too long. Maybe you've enjoyed. Maybe you've made it to the end. Maybe you've already liked
They've all made it to the end, mate. They've
the
all made
video.
it to the end, let's be totally honest.
and 5-starred and subscribed and followed us on Be Real.
Be Real, yep. Slap us a follow on Be Real.
We're not on Be Real.
We'll be
We should be
doing.
on Be Real.
Yeah, we should actually. We'll upload the full podcast to Be Real.
Does it well like that?
It absolutely doesn't. It absolutely doesn't. But yeah, as Tommo said, drop us a like if you are watching on YouTube. Subscribe if you are, of course, new to the channel. You haven't done so already. Aldas, thank you very much for coming on. Where can the people find you?
Aldas on literally everything. Just type 5 letters, short and sweet. Twitter, YouTube, Instagram, Bebo, Facebook, Pinterest, whatever. All of those.
And more importantly, Be Real as well. Again.
Yeah.
ALDASNIRANTOMMO.
Oh man, we're sick. We're
It's
sick.
written in
The
the stars,
branding, sensational branding, ladies and gentlemen.
Phenomenal.
But yeah, that is going to wrap it up from us, even. And we'll see you soon.
Enjoy.
Enjoy. Adios.